So you mentioned you're doing work with suicide prevention in Pacific communities. What else have you done? Like within this kind of field, is it? You know?
Yeah, suicide prevention as well for Asian populations, and that was being framed differently from the Western and also the Eastern world. Because in the Western society, suicide still very closely related to mental health and well-being issues, but in the Eastern world, like usually it's being constructed as a social issue. So it's a construct social issue where because of societal pressure or a distance of the family family that decided to take their life. So the burden wasn't individual, but it's more about the structures. So that's why when something happens, they also create more stigma, means that whoever hold that structure, so that were the issues, not just that person that have, Western world is believe that person have making that, choices one way or another, but there's less about that. So so the worldview about mental health is very different and phrased very differently. And so when you still have a lot of Asian countries adopting Western biomedical model, and they still believe we understand, like the suicides among their own community, it's really hard to find common ground and to create a narrative that's part of the community to hear, and it's still not happening for most Asian.
I think what's interesting about that, I think in wisdom we'll start to look more to the social systemic kind of causes of things like suicide. It's not always like phrased as mental health now. You know,
Yeah,
if you look at a lot of things like poverty,
Yeah.
and yeah, like definitely a lot of different
Yeah.
things like that. Yeah,
Yeah, it's more about social determinants, isn't it?
yeah,
And ironically for
isolation stuff like that.
yeah, ironically for Asians, the other way around. I don't.
Interesting. Hopefully, there's like an overlap between,
Yeah,
because I think suicide's such a complex thing.
it is.
It's multiple factors,
It
not
is.
just one mental health thing or one social thing. It's various things about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wholeheartedly agree, and also I think the conversation need to come together, not just, like biomedical field or whatever. It's like the whole, professionals from different academia, they need to come and sit on table and really discuss the issue, not just either mental health professional or this group of people or that group of people. It's everybody need to be sitting on the same table, from, like people who make economic decisions, policy decisions, like to medical decisions. All these key policy players need to look at it together instead of in isolation.
Yeah.
I think everything that we look at now is so subtle that there's a problem. I want to say, like it's never a single issue. Incarcerations, mental that create another challenges.
Yeah. And then once incarcerated, like things like employment, job satisfaction, all that kind of stuff. It's very, yeah, housing. Housing is becoming a big issue too now.
Yeah, my God.
Yeah. If you got somebody that's been incarcerated, they're trying to get work, they got a criminal record, it's hard to get hired. And then getting housing also becomes difficult.
Yeah.
The cycle just,
If they had a children and even family issues, they need to, like, and all that to still compound. Yeah.
So you work from within, suicide prevention, and then you moved into some gambling harm, is that right?
Yeah, my station. Yeah, and which I'm very grateful to even have that opportunity, because working in that space really helped me to connect with many individuals who have lived experience, and even through that, I get to have conversations that I might never have the opportunity with my father to really understand the lived experience. I focused on really strong bond with the lived experience group of individual from Asian background, and they were so kind to share with me their thoughts, regrets, and things that I would never have the courage to ask my father. And that helped me to feel from the understood.
So your work within gambling harm minimalization was mainly an Asian community?
Yeah.
Oh, so is this a big challenge certain Asian communities.
Yeah, it is, especially in New Zealand, because of it's this in general, like compared to the rest of populations, the belief is Asians don't gamble, but it's not true.
Yeah.
They just do different form of gambling. When they gamble, the severity of the time, money, energy, the harm is much more severe compared to other population because of social factor, because of social isolation,
Yeah.
language barrier, and also identity and the way that camping can they call camping roots is very different as well. So the narrative, if you talk to Asians, is one that's full of heartbreak. Yeah, because they don't just lost money, they lost their whole identity, especially migrants who came with money and wealth, and without the social structures, they feel like that was the only way we can form social connections and friendships through some premises that embrace who they are. So yeah.
Oh, I don't even realize because I don't have much experience with gambling.
Mm.
And I've gone on pokies every now and then, not on years now, but played Sky City, maybe once or twice in my life. But you're talking about a community connection and gambling for Asians, migrants. Wow, and that being one of the only spaces of connection as well. Oh yeah, that would be difficult,
Everyone will be in the place, but
yeah. So there's somewhere that Asians can go.
Yeah.
If they want to.
yeah, being treated like VIP and 24/7 secure, safe, and blah blah blah. Speak their language.
I can't even imagine that. Like coming into another country, coming with a whole bunch of money, and and then having to connect with others, and there's like places where they treat you like a king or whatever,
Yeah.
but they're basically just bleeding you.
Yeah, you hear it over and over again. Sad, like same story, different faces, different ethnicity,
Yeah.
but same story. And then the family consequences and the isolation you're living. Just sad. Yeah. Yeah.
So going back to the part about your divorce, so you were married for like 22 years. 22 years.
And that has been one of the most incredible years as spiritual awakening. Like I was just given this second chance to live my life. Yeah, and asking me, like if you have to redo it again, would you? This is the opportunity, but it took a lot of courage, honesty, and even telling my partner about the way that I love is through my own insecurity. Because I, like my mother, seeing her using my father. And so I want to be the provider, provide so much for him that he feels so secure. He feels so comfortable. He doesn't even have to leave home. And I created the environment for him. Because of that, he's so comfortable that he doesn't even feel like the need to go out to the world, which is unhealthy. And I keep, like trying to hold this structure to a point where I didn't even know how to play it anymore. And so I told him, like, I told him we need to set ourselves free. And so it was hard for him to hear it, but he agreed. And he agreed. and he agreed and he understand. So yeah. So we now separating. And yeah. And I don't know what's going to happen either in the future, but yeah.
How does it feel to be, I guess, a single man on the prowl again after 22 years?
I wouldn't say I enjoy it because, like with the LGBT communities, sometimes it's quite easily being sidetracked by some other things. Basically, it's more than anything else. And I find probably also, I think I'm kind of just still figuring things out myself. Yeah. So I'm not really here or there or looking. Yeah.
Personally, I've found a lot of enjoyment in being single now. Second time, like But yeah, I can relate to a lot of that. What you were saying there. I'm finding myself outside of.
I might share something in the future, but because I think things still unfolding, so I don't want to.
Probably cut that whole.
I happy to talk about, because I think a lot of people carry on as it is because they have built something together and felt the need to carry on. And I felt between Jerry and I is I want to honor the truth, and that's why I learned. I always hold back my tongue because I didn't want to upset people or tell the truth. So in the end, I keep holding things in instead of saying it out loud and mean it.
Yes.
And then I suffer.
I think that sometimes a public podcast might not be the best, but it's definitely good to talk about those things.
Yeah. And then that's why, I write a blog about drowning in the wilderness.
Well, there was another piece of writing. I think it was when I first added you on social media that it was like the drowning article, but it was more around how you'd worked with the sector, I think, for like 20 something years or whatever, and how your identity was all in work. And I remember that. I remember reading that, and I related so much because I feel I'm very similar to you in that regard. Like, I like running around, doing heaps of projects, and work is such a big part of mine, And I think that's almost the trap of peer support stuff as well, because it's really powerful work, and we get to make changes, But that becomes a thing that can become addictive, and it's so easy to lose my identity and all that as well.
And I have to say that's what I felt like where I admire the piece, even purely even further, unpack it even further. It's like, where is the support structure?
Yeah.
They don't have the same support structures.
Yeah.
Like that professional women Christians, they have that support structures like supervision, blah, 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 in praise, and we don't. So the great thing is we almost like able to run free, given this huge, gigantic views like, do hours, do what you want, blah, blah, blah. It's like, where is my support? I want me to build 20 houses, fine. Give me the labels, the material resources that I can build 20 houses. Not just give me a land and say you can build 20 houses and then up to me how I build it. And so I felt there's a lot of unfairness, and I also want to say something without going through the journey, probably I wouldn't even know. So I don't want you to take that away for yourself. But on the other hand, I think we need to be smarter and challenges like, if you can give this for these resources, where's mine? You say we equal, you say all that, where's my resource to help me to build that 20 houses?
And I think that is something that they're sort of wanting to address now. These conversations are really important. Because even supervision you mentioned there, a lot of times peers have been supervised from clinicians, and it's completely different, And one of the big parts of that about that is part of being peer support is using our lived experience safely, right?
Yeah.
That's something that isn't part of the clinical model. We are often share so much deep stuff about our journey sometimes, or meet people that their stories mirror ours. Or we might be doing working with a peer, and then we'll see them in another recovery space, and that could be our personal recovery space. These are the types of things that clinicians don't really deal with, and you can't really get a clinician to tell you how to be a peer support and then never be a peer support. Yeah.
And also, like being peer, the biggest challenge is we always have to open our share our story to a point where people think, I tell you what, I wouldn't be really traumatized myself for sure. But then, no one will even check in with me like, are you okay?
Yeah.
Afterward, are you okay? I'm not saying patronizingly saying, oh, are you safe? Not. But using most human basics. Like, even normal people wouldn't go and share about their Bible study. Why? Just because you call it peer support, we expected to share and they expected us to be okay about it. Wasn't being talk about their experience day in, day out. wouldn't that be a courtesy even just to say, do you know sometimes you can say no? Do you know sometimes you can just be acknowledged and say you're doing way bigger job than us. As a clinician, you don't have to share all that.
Yeah.
But if you have to reopen whatever that you did us and being asked, why not watch that in the most respectful way and saying, can we do something to honor that? We need to give you that mana, but also to ensure every time we share this, we can do whatever we can to uphold and lift your spirit.
Yeah, definitely.
No, we expected just to show and tell a story, but you ask any questions, just talk about the breakup lately. See how?
Yeah,
Yeah,
I completely agree with that. And there's got to be something to restore
yeah,
because we give so much energy away.
yeah,
That I've seen within the last year, so many years. Well, not even last year, probably last few years, but it's been really noticeable to me in the last year, just because I've seen so many crises.
Yeah.
Of peer support workers, and it's that thing before where initially it isn't such a passionate form of work we do. We want to do the best to help everyone,
yeah.
but the support structures aren't in place.
No,
And then often I see it, peers burning out,
yeah,
and they don't, and we're dealing with people that have challenges or have had, sometimes it's not lived experience, sometimes it's living experience,
yes,
and still going through mental health things,
Yeah.
still going through, maybe even addiction things, or at least like, potentially cravings and all this kind of stuff. And I've seen a lot of relapses and services are really unwell. And again, it can really be stocked with proper structure,
yeah,
proper support, because it's such an emotionally taxing thing.
And I tell you what, Shelwin, and I really like what you just say as well, early on about you shouldn't have clinicians doing supervision for peer support because we assume the supervision, whatever the support structure, will be similar to what probably not. Because I don't want to be told like I shouldn't do more. It's not a point. I should be encouraged, embraced. However, the question is, what are the resources that this individual needs to be able to have less burden to do their work? Because as a peer support lead experience, we face a lot of barriers. We constantly have to renegotiate things, and that take a lot of energy. And then there's often come along voices as well when people or clinicians are disagree with the views that you're presenting. And then we assume, because you're doing too much. Probably, yes, we do, but again, it's not saying then this model is going to be fixed. Like the issue we have, but give us the resources we need. And then so, you can better not even be quick to do your job because you're good with your job, but knowing where you have somewhere else you can fall back on and have support and, even share the load. But there's none. Like clinicians can rely on each other, like, task MCU now is at work, but we need another name for peer support and experience discussions.
Maybe we should just make a whole new podcast about that. That would be actually fun.
Isn't that true?
Yeah, it's definitely true. And I think a part of it is, I mean, you probably felt it more in those pioneering days of peer support where no one even knew what it was.
No.
But the thing is, that was 20 plus years ago, and still it's in the same boat. And it's becoming very well known within recovery circles where someone goes through a rehab and they might be, I don't know, 9 months sober or something. And then they're like, I'm gonna go do my level 4 and then I'm gonna become a peer support. And now it's become this like industry basically.
Yeah.
But it's moving away from what peer support was really need to be. It's sort of it's very strange, like in a way where it's, how do I say this? It's become I'm just trying to figure out a good way to word this. It's like people go through treatment and then it's like they've got to become peer support, and it's like really encouraged from clinicians. It's encouraged by other peer support workers. Like, this is the path you need to take. You get 9 months of riding, now go do your level 4, and then you can work in the sector. And that's it's just become this whole industry of this. Was I think peer support when you started wouldn't have been so,
Wow.
yeah,
Exactly. It was really to be able to role model. Of course, there's always a challenge,
yeah.
and but again, like I also agree. Then there's another thing is everybody wants to support, but organization must also have a candid conversation and say how comfortable are we to face the truth when someone are having too much or having relapse? How do we address the issue? How do we embrace, the relapses? And so the person will feel like, now I relapse, I can't come back. The organization need to be able, I don't know whether it's the case or not, to even understand recovery is not, like a straight line. And even as a case of war, they might fall off the wagon. And it's okay.
Yeah.
It's like life. Everybody make mistakes.
I think I know one person who obviously I met who was very big with some peer support for quite a while, and they ended up having a relapse and then sort of disappeared. They're basically out, struggling with things. Now I often think like how difficult it would also be for that person who's who got into very good positions, and had a lot of impact to actually be able to come back and ask for help. And I think we need to find a way to make it, firstly, to prevent those situations from happening, but secondly, when they do happen, to help those people come back into recovery and have it without judgment, have it without, it's very difficult. I could, like even where I'm at the moment, I feel like if I relapsed and particularly, not so much my mental health side, but I feel like if I relapse on the addiction side, I think it will be very difficult for me, some ways to come back into anything recovery related.
That individual being watched. How does that person behave? Like, is it too much? Is that person okay?
Yeah.
And say, or you have to uphold this standard because you have this title or whatever, and yet, like other people get to kind of compartmentalize their life, and this experience we have this really, like blur line between our individual life and our professional life.
Definitely.
And it's expected us to, to cut it clean when we needed to. Expected us to pour our heart and talk about our life most candid way, and then shut the door. Now you have to be professional, even though you have the title. That's it.
I remember, I'm not going to name context, but one of my old managers, I was going through a bit of struggle mentally.
Yeah.
And they basically said to me, look, you show up, you do your work, and you make sure you make that the person you're supporting, it's around that. You focus on running your groups, you focus on being the peer support. And then when you go from here and your breaks and stuff, you can have breakdown and cry there. And I was new-ish to peer support in this case, right? And I kind of thought like, oh, that makes a lot of sense actually, because I'm here doing a job and I need to support the person. I can't do my personal thing. And now, after having a few years of it, it's like, that's such an awful way to think about it.
Agree.
You can't just, if you go, and life's going to happen. Regardless, you've got to deal with stuff, and you're not always going to show up your best,
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I feel really unfair as well, like when our ability off suddenly becomes such a big thing.
Yeah.
When individual ability off is how I'm saving a tough thing. Our off is like we're not even allowed to.
Yeah.
Because then everybody is just going to tiptoe inside. That person's going to be okay. It's that. And that's what the challenge is. The organization need to have real conversation within them and say we want to have all this support or whatever.
Yeah.
But how much can we embrace that recovery?
That's so that. Yeah. And I think the other side of that is when we end up being, in positions of modeling recovery, there's a certain expectation of what that recovery needs to look like.
Exactly.
And that's not the reality of it. Like it becomes this very polished. This is the, this is what recovery should be.
Yeah.
And you're expected to perform on that level all the time. Yeah. But the real peer support and the ones that I feel the best are always the ones that are authentic with them. Even if they're going through a difficult thing, they'll name it. They might, I do it myself. I might, depending on the context, name it. But I do park it to the side of it and go, but I'm never going to deny that, I'm not going through a hard time.
Yeah.
I'll always be transparent about that,
And exactly last year, like so many times I was thinking, man, I can really talk to.
Your last year was crazy.
I didn't, but I do want to.
Your last year was I'm leaving where I think your organization that you basically were very heavily involved in building to the point of where it is today. So you basically built this organization, left, and then had a divorce as well. So it's like, yeah, I can see why you would want to drink. You know, like, this is like crazy, man.
Yeah, I think about Shelwin, and ask myself what like it was a choice.
Yeah,
It was a choice, and I was like, someday I just want to be drunk.
yeah.
I don't want to think about any of that.
So what stops you from knowing that power?
I surrender. I know there is a reason for.
It's very interesting because you
No, no,
yeah. This is what I say. You don't come from a 12-step background, right? But you still have that same higher power connection as part of your recovery. Yeah. So what would you say to your younger self?
Embrace who you are. Trust your instinct. Thank you, Shelwin. Thank you.
Thank you. Letting me back into your apartment. I wouldn't personally, but you know,
But I'm so glad that we get to do it together because I felt we have such a common language and understanding, especially with the need and pace of the space. It's hard to find someone who understands that space. Sometimes.
I think you're right. It's amazing that you've been involved in so many things, and now I get to come in. I think there's something we were talking about when we were having food, where there's a lot of like senior or people that have been around, and there's a lot of entry level people. There isn't this middle ground because people jump into clinical roles. So this friendship that we're forming and forming is so amazing for me, like because I get to be around someone that's actually, been in peer support for such a long time, and has all this lived experience, and this is a game changer for me, really.
Likewise, I think it's so great to see someone like you have the passions and also really, I know you make it sound easy, but I know it's not an easy job at all.
Yeah, you of all people know that.
I know that but you will carry it and doing such a great, it's a privilege.
We'll try the best that I can with this. And I guess that's all we can ever do, really, It's never going to be perfect as well,
No, it's really not. And doing your best is enough. It's more than enough.
Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.